Welcome back to Father-Son DIY Garage.
As you guys can see, we have a load of pallets out here.
Stay tuned, and we're gonna build something really cool out of this mess. Okay, we kicked this project off by breaking down the pallets. As you can see, Joe is using the Sawzall. This really made some quick work of all these pallets. There was quite a bit of junk on some of these, so we tossed that part and kept some of the best pieces. After removing all the nails, we used a chop saw to cut all the split ends off. And then it was onto the table saw. We used this jig to cut a straight edge on each piece, and then use that straight edge piece to cut a straight edge on the other side. There's a whole lot of pieces going through. A few more. And there they are. All right, we're going for a rustic look with this project, so we just did a light planing on each piece. You'll see some of the texture and colors that remain after we plane, and that's just the way we want it. There it is. Look at those beautiful pieces.
Next, we grabbed a piece of 3/4 inch plywood we had laying around the shop and went ahead and cut that at 3 foot long, so it's going to be 4 feet by 3 feet. And this project is going to be a coffee table, so what we're going to do is we're going to nail all of our pallet wood pieces to this plywood to hold it together nice and strong. You'll see we're laying out all of our dimensions here, and this is going to be a herringbone pattern that we're doing. You see the center lines and the 45s off of it, and then we started gluing up pieces. And then we tacked them on with the finish nailer. And you'll see here we just keep repeating the same process, doing the same pattern. And then once one side is done, we flip it over and start the pattern over again. Check in with our speed square to make sure everything's nice and put together. If you guys haven't been here before, this is Father-Son DIY Garage. My dad and I, we do woodworking, metalworking, and projects around the house. So if you guys like what you see, give us a subscribe and comment down below, I subscribed. And we went ahead and trimmed those sides off with a finished blade on the circular saw with a track set up so it was nice and straight. And then we started doing the pattern off the side. You guys will notice we have two different size pieces. We had some 3-inch pieces and some 2-inch pieces. And we switched those with every single run. And here we are doing that last pattern on that last side. And we ended up having just enough material to get this done. Same thing, we trimmed off all that excess. Once that was all done, we went ahead and sanded it with the orbital sander. Just a light sanding, we didn't want to take too much of that texture off of it. And this is what it looks like before we apply our finish. We're going with this product called Glaze Coat, which is pretty much a clear epoxy. It's going to give the table a nice shine and a nice coat to protect it.
All right, here we go. We're going to pour some epoxy resin on the tabletop. As you can see, we did a little masking tape around the edges to prevent too much spillage across and out. What we're going to do is put a thin coat down that should hopefully act as more of a sealer, and then we'll come back with a flood coat for the final top coat. So let's see what happens. All right, when you lay out the epoxy, there's going to be some small bubbles in there, so Joe's using the propane torch to remove those. After the initial coat, you'll see that some areas the epoxy really soaked in, with the nail holes and the cracks, so definitely going to need a second coat. But overall, that epoxy is really making those colors pop. All right, we're mixing up a second coat of epoxy for the table. We put our final coat on, and then it was time to make the base.
So we decided to make our base out of this rectangular tubing we have, guys. It's 2.5 by 1.5 inches and 1/8 thick. I went ahead and made 3 lines at 18 inches each. And then I went ahead and laid out a 110-degree angle at every point. You'll see here that this area that's X'd off is the part that I'm going to be cutting out. Just went ahead and used the angle grinder with a cutting wheel on it. So I did that for both pieces, then I took them back to the welding table and sanded the edges so they weren't sharp and to get a nice fit up. And here I am bending those pieces up. And I went ahead and clamped them together so they were the same exact spot and welded them up. Put a full weld on every single seam and then went back and sanded it nice and flat. And with the rectangular tubing all done, I went ahead and welded a piece of flat bar to the top. And this is what's going to attach to the table. Then it was time to take our tape off, and you'll see some of that epoxy seep down into those cracks. And we decided to go with some metal strapping along the edges. So I took that back to the welding table, welded those pieces all together, and put a nice coat of black gloss paint on them. I ended up doing 2 coats just to make sure it was nice and covered. And with everything painted, it was time to flip it over and attach the legs to the bottom. We went 6 inches off the edges, and you'll see here I'm laying out 3 holes on each leg. Drilling through that metal. Then I took the base off and drilled some holes. And we're going to be using these things called threaded inserts. You pretty much thread them into the wood, and then they have a spot for screws to go into. So I'll put a couple washers and then tighten those screws up. And then we flipped the table around and repeated the same process again. And with the legs on, we went ahead and put our strapping on the sides. You'll see it was a nice tight fit up, so we had to use the mallet to hit it in. And we wanted this to be nice and flush with the top of the table. And you'll see here we got these decorative lag bolts. These are square head bolts. And we're going to be putting these periodically around the table.
All right. Cheers to another solid project.
That's right. All right, you guys, here's the cost breakdown on the project.
All right, pallet wood, of course,
Free.
free. And then we use a scrap piece of plywood as the undercoat for basically free too. It's just hanging around in the garage.
It's probably about 40 bucks in plywood, and then all the metal for the base and for the trim, that turned out to be about 30 bucks. And then the epoxy,
Paint, maybe another 50 bucks there.
yeah,
So
50 bucks. And then all the hardware, we tried out these new square head lag bolts, and all that stuff was about 10 bucks. And then paint,
Yeah.
$7 bucks. So the total for this project comes out to $137. So pretty nice budget project, and it turned out looking great. So we're real happy with the way it turned out.
yeah, so get yourself a pallet. They're lying around everywhere, you know. So and give a project a try.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to Father Son DIY Garage.
Cheers.